Now, I did not buy this aircraft model when it was originally released from Herpa Wings, but at this year's Amsterdam Aviation Collectors Fair I found it and I got weak. I have to confess, I bought it, but did I make a mistake? Let's find out. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at an Airbus A380-800 of Qantas. At the front of the box we have a lovely image of the aircraft in real life, and on top of that we find the Qantas branding. Now, normally Herpa offers us two cutouts, one on the front and one on the back, but this time a sigh of relief as we find yet another image on the back side of the box. Perhaps not the best image of the aircraft, but hey, it's at least not the only image that we have, as we have plenty more around the box. So yeah, what a pleasant relief. And look at that, you can even open here at the front, see yet another image, and still get a cutout, so those who don't know what they are buying can still figure out that they are buying an aircraft model because they can see it. That's Herpa's logic for you. And here she is, the Airbus A380-800 in the current standard livery of Qantas. This aircraft model was released by Herpa Wings, or at least announced to be released in December 2022. Honestly speaking, I can't remember if the model was delayed. It is very likely that it had a delayed release, but it was announced to be released in December 2022, so that's what we are going with when talking about this aircraft model. But what has Herpa come up with here? Do we just have a really awesome and iconic livery on the model, or can it offer a little bit more? Did I actually spend my money right here, or did I just fall for the trap of a nice livery? Let's find out. And so on the vertical stabilizer we find the iconic and slightly reworked branding of Qantas. At the top of this massive stabilizer we find two letters, those are the two last letters of the registration code. And if we then look on the fuselage, well, here we don't just find the full registration code of the aircraft, but of course also the flag of Australia, and we have the aircraft type specification. Unfortunately, apart from the cabin windows and cabin doors, we don't really have any other noticeable detailing here. Towards the very tail of the aircraft we do have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust, and if we then move to the front of the aircraft we can see along the fuselage the writing of Qantas, and behind that Spirit of Australia, the company slogan of Qantas. We do have a few One World logos, of which the airline is a full member. And, well, I mean, we have at least one static port, two if we count the static port we find underneath the cockpit windows next to the Qantas logo. So yeah, not a whole lot of detailing for such a massive aircraft like the A380. But what about the cockpit section itself? Well, apart from the logo and the static port, we have the cockpit windows with the window wipers. And again, that's it. Just a bare minimum for such a massive A380. But what about the engines? Well, the nacelles have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but we do have the silver leading edge printed on, as well as the safety markings and the Qantas logo. Also, the physical detailing here is actually quite nice. So, all good, right? Right? Right?
Excuse me. All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please!
Now, there's actually one printed detail that I didn't mention so far. Notice this little grey metallic box here on the engines? Well, notice them here. Now have a look at this. So either I have 4 right or 4 left engines. So classic Herpa. Now on the fuselage, just above the wings, we find the overwing emergency exit, and that leads us straight to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at, starting off with the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out quite nicely, and we have some different shades of grey for additional detailing, but unfortunately no other printed details on these massive A380 wings. The underside of the wings has lovely physical detailing and the full registration code of the aircraft, and we do also have these lovely red-colored wingtip fences with the Qantas branding. That looks quite nice, but considering how massive these wings are, could you imagine having maybe some landing lights here? I could, but Herpa couldn't. Now, where I think Herpa has done a really great job with this aircraft model is the landing gear. That looks, I think, really, really nice. The main landing gear, massive as it is in real life, and also really nicely replicated in Scale 500. Also, the front landing gear, I think, looks just fine, except that we also here are missing any printed detailing. Now, on the belly of the aircraft, we can highlight the ram air intakes indicated here as a physical detailing. Apart from that, we do find the Qantas branding printed on. I mean, any print is a lovely surprise on this aircraft model, but of course it has then also immediately been destroyed by Herpa, drilling a hole into the fuselage for a stand that is of course not included with this aircraft model. Make of it what you like. But there are a few more things to be mentioned, like for example when we look on top of the fuselage, where we do find a set dome. Now, Herpa is normally raffling the size and placement of those on their models, but I think in this case they have come pretty close to what it should look like considering what it is in real life. And then finally, and last but not least, we do of course also have the doors to the cargo compartments. Those can be found here at the back and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A380 in the current standard livery of Qantas from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500, and what can we say about this aircraft model? Now, it might have come across that I really am hating on this aircraft model, and actually I'm really not trying to, I promise you. And I do kind of have this rule that I don't want to be too critical on old models or older models. However, a late December 22 release, I also kind of don't want to consider to be that old of a model. So I think it is fair game to criticize it as if it was a current day release, because honestly speaking, I don't think the standards of Herpa have moved pretty much since, if at all. And what is just noticeable is that on an A380, which in scale 500 is a quite large aircraft model, it is just even more painfully obvious when Herpa just leaves out all the detailing. And I know, I mean, the official statement from Herpa Wings is that they want to be consistent with details, so even though they perhaps could have added more details to this aircraft model, then they couldn't have done it with another model, and that would be confusing. I mean, that's literally the official statement from the Herpa product manager in an interview I did with him. You can check that out in a link in the video description below. But I mean, honestly speaking, if Herpa is one thing, then it isn't being consistent. So I would argue that it is simply a shame not to add more details to an A380 like that, because it really needs it. And if communicated right, I think any collector would also understand that there might be differences from aircraft to aircraft. But let's get back to the topic at hand, the aircraft model in front of us. Now, when it comes to the physical detailing, I think Herpa has actually done an outstanding job with this aircraft model. The mold of the A380 is great. The landing gear looks fine. The wings are really nice. The engines, apart from the, of course, slight mistake of having either 4 right or 4 left engines, are, when it comes to physical detailing, also really nice. And they have even kind of nailed the sat dome, which they also often kind of mess up. So yeah, in that sense, it is a nice model. But in the end, let's face it, I mean, it is a nice aircraft model overall, considering scale 500 standards from Herpa Wings, but it is really carried by the livery. So yeah, I did kind of let myself go here and just focus on the livery because it just looks so nice and it looks great on the A380. Or to put it in other words,
I mean, it's alright, like, overrated as fuck in my opinion. I mean, and you know what though? That's typically how
Herpa
goes, you feel me?